I got up, startled as usual, thanks to my alarm clock. As I dragged myself from my bed, I noticed that the house was very quiet. This was a very strange occurrence because my parents were early risers. I always woke up to them either arguing about something or celebrating their new conquest. Whatever, I thought as I entered the kitchen to make breakfast. My parents never prepared any meal for me. They always made theirs, ate, and left. I was used to it by now. As I walked past my parents' room on my way to the kitchen, something just felt very wrong. I had this strong, bad feeling, and I decided to check up on them in their room. I hope they aren't dead, I thought. I walked into the room carefully, heart in hand as I opened the door. What I witnessed was worse than anything I could have expected. Hey, I'd appreciate it if you could hit the like and subscribe button so we can continue with the story. Thank you! I opened the door and realized that my parents weren't dead. They were much, much worse. Gone! I ran to the drawer where I saw the documents last night. It was empty. I should have known. These people didn't care about me, so I don't understand why I thought those documents were for us all to travel. Did they think I was stupid, though? A 15-year-old chaotic teenager who had con artists as parents? I was smarter than middle-aged adults. It was quite funny that they thought they could elope without me. It was time to surprise them. I called the cops and told them exactly where they were headed. I also explained that they abandoned their 15-year-old daughter at home without any guardian, while letting it slip that they were the infamous Mr. and Mrs. Taylor Fingers, the married con artists that had destroyed the lives of many. They were caught and arrested in a short time. However, before the cops could come and save the stranded 15-year-old Aurora Fingers, I dug up my savings from its hidden spot in the garden and escaped to another village. There, I cut and dyed my hair, changing my identity forever. This was the beginning of my con journey, and my plan was to excel at it unlike my parents. My parents had been conning and scamming people since they were little. As a matter of fact, they met during one such heist and fell in love with each other, subsequently getting married. The funny thing was that, despite their years of experience in the con industry, we always remained lower middle class, always making just enough to survive. I thought it was pathetic. My parents taught me exactly who I shouldn't be. Over the years, I took on different names, identities, and individualities, and I was successful at my craft. Even the government respected me because they just couldn't understand how I did it. I became rich quickly, but I was always on the run. I didn't mind it, though. I enjoyed the thrill of making cops think they had me, then disappearing like I never existed in the first place. It was exhilarating. As time went by, I got everything money could buy, but I still searched desperately for one thing: love. I'd been with different people in the past, but none of them truly loved me. They were either with me for my beauty or my money, fame or status. I always left them high, broken, dry anyway. Since they couldn't give me what I wanted and were simply using me, why couldn't I use them too? It had been 10 years since I got my parents locked up, ran away from my village, and began my con journey, and I was already drowning in wealth, even though I was only 25. I was getting tired of the game, and it seemed like it was time to settle down. One day, while relaxing on my yacht, my parents contacted me. Apparently, their jail time of 10 years was up, and they needed a place to stay. I knew they didn't care about me, and all they needed was my money, but I let them come over anyway. After all, money was the only thing that everyone wanted from me too. They were amazed at my riches and kept walking around my mansion, staring in disbelief. I informed them that I had a con gig for them, and they would be set up for life after completing the gig. Our victim was a politician who stole people's pension money. He wasn't a good person either, so we weren't doing anything wrong. We started our mission and I sent my parents to their positions. What they didn't know was that I had anonymously informed the cops of their plan to rob the so-called politician, who's actually a reverend, so they were apprehended and arrested again, sentenced for 5 years this time. I wish they'd been given about 10 to 20 years though, but I was happy to have them off my back once again, no matter how short the time was. I was ready to retire since my 10th generation couldn't even exhaust my wealth at this point, but I had one last target, and I wanted to drain him for fun, just to prove that I still had it. He was a billionaire playboy and his name was Gustav. The plan was to play the billionaire playboy and leave him without a cent to his name. This was going to be fun. To my surprise, this dude treated me like he really loved me. He didn't show off his wealth for a second. Instead, he took me to places where we had genuine fun. We went to parks and jumped on different rides, went skydiving, cliff diving, paintballing, bike riding, and more. He took me on street dates, to beaches. We watched romantic and sad movies and we cried together. We talked about business, and he even compelled me to start a few legal businesses with him. These businesses started making so much money in just a few months, and I couldn't believe that something legal could make so much money, since I had only done illegal things all my life. He showed me what true love meant, something I hadn't experienced since I was born. I could feel myself falling head over heels for him, but I knew that it was simply a game to him, and he had won me fair and square. Being in love with him, I couldn't con him anymore, mostly because I didn't need the extra money anyway. And I couldn't bear seeing him penniless, knowing the good things he was doing with his money, like building orphanages, shelters, helping internationally displaced people, and more amazing stuff. I decided to quietly ghost him, disappearing from his life completely and making sure there was no way he could ever contact me again. Despite the fact that I ghosted him, I secretly watched his every move because I was already obsessed with him. I watched him cry, drink, search frantically for me, and become absolutely miserable over my disappearance. I knew he loved me too, but how could I be sure? What if it was all an act? He was famous for using girls and messing them up, and I was experienced with pretending to be in love, right down to pretending to be miserable after a breakup or ghosting experience. I rolled in my bed and cried because I realized that I couldn't even experience true love, because I would always doubt its originality. Despite this, I never stopped watching Gustav. I started behaving like one of his obsessed, creepy fans. One day, he was lounging in a pool when some men tried to drown him. I immediately ran to his rescue and beat up the whole team of 15 men without breaking a sweat. Gustav was happy to see me, but also surprised and confused.
Why did you leave me? Did I do something wrong? Where have you been? How did you know I was in trouble? Wait a minute, have you been watching me? How can you fight like that? You defeated 15 heavily built men in a couple of minutes without even breaking a sweat. I couldn't do that if I tried, and I have martial arts training. Who are you really, Julia? Are you some sort of criminal or something?
Easy, boy. You'll know everything in due time. By the way, my name isn't really Julia. It's Aurora. Aurora Fingers. He stared at me in confusion as I led him to my hotel room. On the way, though, he suddenly remembered that he needed to take a drug, and it was at home. I was worried about his home's safety, considering the fact that he was just attacked, but he convinced me to go back with him. Being a love-struck idiot, I immediately did, without noticing all the bright red flags right in front of me. Once we got home, he demanded that I tell him the whole truth. According to him, he went completely mad when I left, wondering what he had done wrong for me to disappear like that, so it was only fair for me to tell him everything. Having watched his every move, I believed everything he said. It did seem like he had almost gone completely mad as a result of my disappearance. What I didn't know, however, was that this was all an elaborate scheme to get me to spill the beans. And I naively did exactly that. I spilled every last bean. He suddenly stood up and laid flat on the floor while muttering,
I'm so sorry, Aurora. I really am. But this is my job and I have to do it perfectly.
My eyes widened as a horde of cops broke into the house with heavy guns. Right in the middle of the crowd was Agent Storytime. He had been on my case for the entirety of my con journey and could never get a lead until now.
Well, Aurora Fingers, my Jane Doe for a decade. I finally know your name, and not just that. I also have you confessing all of your crimes in one go. Love really is blind, isn't it?
He smiled, showing me an audio recorder. In one swift movement, I stretched my long, slim legs, pushing the recorder off his hands and destroying it with my stiletto. Gustav jumped up and tased me, making me fall on the ground. I stared at him with hurt and disappointment.
The fact that you destroyed the tape doesn't matter. We still have a few backups of your confession.
I smirked while looking straight into his eyes. I knew he was lying.
Whatever. Well, we all heard you confess, including your lover boy here, and we're happy to stand against you in trial. Isn't that right, Detective?
Right.
Gustav muttered. Detective? I wondered aloud.
Oh, surprised? Well, Loverboy here isn't your actual target, Aurora.
He flashed me a winning grin.
Your parents gave us some information about your next target, so we informed him and got him to hide while our head detective here impersonated him, acting for months on end, pretending to love and miss you. Surprised to encounter a better actor than you?
I didn't want to, but somehow I burst into tears, making Agent Storytime even more happy. I'd never felt this kind of pain before.
All right, that's enough. Let's round it up.
Gustav tried to pick me up, but I knocked his head with mine like it was a football. I was used to pain and fighting, so it didn't hurt one bit, but the sheer force made him fall back and scream in pain.
Ah!
I jumped on him and beat him up badly while whispering, "I loved you. I was ready to die for you." The cops dragged me off him, but he stopped them from hitting me. He came close to me, looked me straight in the eyes, and coldly said,
I know.
before walking off. I tried to jump on him again, but they used the taser on me once again and I became weak. I was locked in an old and shaky prison while they waited for the transfer trucks to come and take me. I felt they underrated my skills, though, because this prison was so easy to break out of. In a week, I made friends with people who had the extra skills that I needed. We put our plan in motion and broke out of the prison. To our surprise, they had expected this, so we were caught immediately and put in solitary confinement for another week. After that, I was set to be transferred to an underground prison where I'd be tortured by my enemies and people I had stolen from for the rest of my life. I was knocked out and loaded into the truck. I woke up in the moving armored truck and immediately noticed a tattoo on one of the guards' hands. I recognized it as Gustav's tattoo and wondered what he was doing there. He put a finger on his lips, signaling me to remain quiet. The guards were all wearing masks so they didn't know he was the one. Suddenly, the truck came to a halt. The guards in front came out but were knocked out. Gustav knocked out all the guards at the back before they could figure out what was happening. Unfortunately, I was also knocked out in the scuffle. I woke up on the most beautiful island I had ever seen, and Gustav was lying down beside me.
Mi amor, you're awake.
I replied with a resounding slap. I was in prison for 2 weeks.
I know, I'm sorry. Please, forgive me, my love.
Gustav explained that his twin brother was actually the billionaire playboy I targeted, and that was why I couldn't differentiate them. His mission was to get me arrested, but he couldn't go through with everything because he had fallen madly in love with me. He was going to give up his former life and career to live on this hidden island with me, but on one condition. What is it? I wondered. He got down on one knee and brought out a ring from a box.
Aurora Fingers, will you marry me?
My hard-earned money had been confiscated by the government, but it didn't really matter because I had finally found what I'd been searching for all these years, right from when I lived with my parents. Love. Besides, Gustav was a billionaire. Yes, I'll marry you, Gustav.
Great, but my name isn't really Gustav. That's my brother's name. I'm Alejandro.
I threw a pillow at my new fiancé, and he hugged me tight.
Mom, I got all A's in my classes.
So what? You're not the first person to get all A's. Mom, I'm sorry, but I failed all my classes. Oh, honey, you should be proud of yourself. At least you took the exams. But what if I'm required to repeat a grade? What? Impossible. That can never happen. I will talk with your teachers and principal immediately. They're doing such terrible work in that school.
The teachers? I asked, confused. They're doing a terrible job? Your daughter, who refuses to ever study anything, unsurprisingly fails all of her papers, and the teachers are to blame? You know who's to blame for her failures? You are. Yes, you. Don't stare at me like you're all confused. I've had enough of you. You are to blame for every bad thing that happens to Claire. And me. And Dad. Any bad thing that happens in this house is all your fault.
All right, that's enough.
Dad tried to carry me, but I pushed him away. Don't touch me, Dad. Don't you dare. You just stand around and watch this evil woman make my life miserable. And you never do anything about it.
I try my best, honey.
Well, your best isn't enough. I had sleepless nights studying, trying to be the best, so just once in my life, my mother would say she's proud of me. But instead, she doesn't give a hoot about me. I burst into tears and Claire tried to comfort me. Don't touch me, I screamed, storming off. Mom immediately followed me.
You, young lady, are grounded for the rest of—
No, she's not.
My dad interjected.
Now, get out of the way.
He pushed Mom aside as he followed me into my bedroom and comforted me. Yeah, my house was a madhouse. Thanks to my crazy mother. Hi, I'm Clara, and this is the story of my hard life. Before we proceed, please be a dear and hit the like and subscribe button if you want to receive 10 years of good luck. Believe me, it works. What you just witnessed is a short summary of my life. It has always been this way. Ever since Claire and I were born, my mother just preferred Claire to me for some unknown reason. She always praised Claire for the littlest things while insulting and castigating me no matter what I did, good or bad. My dad noticed this, and I remember him trying to have a conversation with her, explaining that the way she was handling things wasn't the right way to train children. But she never listened to him. She just kept on neglecting me. Over the years, I did everything I possibly could to impress her, but she was never fazed. I started hating Claire for all the love and affection that our mother kept showering on her. I started suspecting that Claire was actually doing this on purpose. Perhaps she was lying to my mother about me or doing things in secret with her, things I hadn't figured out yet. I felt so bad that I began withdrawing myself from the family. I think this was when my dad really took notice of how bad things were getting in my life, so he stopped being the equal, loving father and started giving me special attention so I'd stop feeling neglected and alone. The funny thing is, Claire noticed how my dad was treating me and started hating me too for all the love and affection that he was showering on me. She didn't understand that he was only trying to fill up the empty gap in my soul. It became a game. Who would do the most impressive thing? Claire always won with our mom, but failed with our dad, while I always won with our dad and failed with our mom. We started hating each other badly, and as a result, we grew up without having a relationship. We just avoided each other at all costs, and we didn't even understand why. One day, our mom came back from work and announced that she had gotten a new job where she had to work evenings. We all objected to the fact that she'd have to work evenings, but she then explained that she didn't mind the hours because the salary of the new job was almost triple her previous salary. When we heard this, we decided to let the hours slide and all got genuinely excited for her because it meant that our lives were also going to become better as a result. Claire grew up to be really mischievous, but my mother never really saw anything wrong with that. One evening, Claire snuck out with some kids who I recognized from our streets. These were badly behaved kids that didn't even go to school anymore because they'd been expelled and arrested so many times. I was annoyed with Claire, but I was also worried. There was no way those kids were going to be a good influence on her. I waited for my parents to come back home, Mom from work and Dad from an impromptu evening meeting. When they arrived, I told them everything. My dad was really worried and wanted to go and find Claire wherever she was, but my mom simply brushed it off, saying it was just teenage stuff.
Honey, this is not a big deal. Let the young girl have fun. This is just what teenagers do. You know she's 18 already, right?
When my dad insisted on going to find Claire, my mom severely warned him. This was when I realized that my mother was the breadwinner of our family. No wonder she got away with almost everything. She made more than Dad so she could threaten him with money. I tried attending an innocent school party one night, but both my mom and Dad didn't let me go anywhere. While we argued, Claire simply walked to the door and said,
I'm off to the school party. I'm not coming back till Monday. Bye. All right, sweetheart. Enjoy your weekend.
You're not coming back till Monday? What the?
Mom gave Dad a stern look.
It's all right, my love. Have a blast.
They immediately turned back to me while I stared at them with my mouth wide open. My lips were so far apart that you could fit a football stadium right into it.
Now you, young woman, go back to your room before I descend on you.
Dad! I called out with tears in my eyes, but he simply looked away. I went back to my room and locked the door, weeping as I sat on my floor. Claire was allowed to party and leave the house as much as she liked. It didn't matter how much our dad objected, Mom had the final say. But whenever I tried to go out and have this type of fun, both Dad and Mom objected. No matter how my dad tried to make up for it after the fact, I was convinced that they both hated me. And I couldn't understand why, because I'd done my best to be perfect for them. One night, Claire came home by 2 a.m., drunk and wearing really revealing clothes. Dad got so angry with her that he started yelling uncontrollably at her. But this infuriated Mom, and she responded by yelling back at him. One thing led to another, and they suddenly ignored Claire, who made them start fighting in the first place and focused on themselves, yelling and screaming at each other. I just stood there, stunned. Mom slipped and stumbled on the floor. While trying to gain her balance, she almost fell down and hit her head, but Dad immediately caught her and saved her. She responded by attacking my dad like she was some sort of cat, and they both resumed the noisy scene. A drunk Claire tried to stop all the yelling, screaming that they were giving her a headache, but while approaching them and trying to speak, she ended up slipping and falling down, hitting her head in the process. This abruptly ended the noise between my parents because we had to quickly rush her to the hospital. While on the road, my parents kept shouting and blaming each other for Claire's accident while I cradled Claire at the back of the car. We almost had an accident because of the constant word battle, and this was when they decided to be quiet till we reached the hospital, to avoid any more mishaps. After waiting for hours at the hospital, the doctor finally came out.
Hello, I have both good news and bad news.
Hit me with it.
Your daughter has survived the procedure. She is safe.
Thank God.
Unfortunately, she might be in a coma for a short while.
The doctor kept quiet, allowing it to sink in for a few minutes before continuing.
The great news is that the baby is totally fine.
He gave a huge smile.
Baby? What
baby?
We all chorused.
Oh, you didn't know? Well, congratulations. Claire is 3 months pregnant, so now you're an aunt.
He said, pointing at me.
And you're grandparents. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you guys.
The clueless doctor walked away thinking that he had just broken the best news on the planet, and I stared at his back as he walked away cheerfully, wondering how a grown man and a doctor could be so clueless and stupid. He's probably still a student, I thought. That's why he couldn't read the room. My dad broke down and began crying while my mother simply stared into space. 5 days later, Claire woke up. She was released from the hospital 3 days after that. Nobody told her about the baby until we got home when my dad carefully broke the news to her after dinner. She turned bright blue and immediately threw up on the floor before she began crying and shouting.
This is all your fault, Mom. You're to blame for everything. I hate you. I hate you so much. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
Calm down, Claire. It's okay. We're not angry with you. I'm disappointed, but what has happened, and it can't be changed. Now, tell me, who is the father of your child?
She kept crying profusely.
I don't even know, Dad. I've dated so many guys in the past few months because Mom let me, and I don't know which one is the father. This is all Mom's fault. I hate her.
How is this Mom's fault? I asked. You're the one who wanted to hang out with those delinquents.
No, that's not even what I'm talking about. I caught my mom with another man on the first night that I went to a party. That was why she allowed me to stay out late that day. And that was why she kept letting me go out whenever I wanted after that, too. She didn't want me to tell you guys that she didn't actually have a new job that required her to work evenings. She just had a new man, and he's the one that has been spending so much money on her.
Dad got furious after hearing this and immediately sent Mom away shortly after divorcing her. As she left that night, she kept on screaming that we'd suffer. We'd be poor and broke, and it'd be impossible for us to survive without her. Seeing that he was the new breadwinner of the family, my dad had to leave his old job for a new one. We helped him with the preparation of his CVs and cover letters, and then even helped him prepare for interviews until he got an executive position. He started taking care of us properly, and life became more tolerable because he loved us equally and unconditionally. There was no unhealthy competition for attention between us anymore. 6 months after Claire's incident, she gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, and we all loved him more than life itself. We all lived in harmony for 3 strong years, but the madness in our lives was far from over. One day, my mother came to visit us, and we let her in, even though we didn't really want to. The first person she noticed was Claire's son.
You wicked and ungrateful daughter.
She shouted, referring to Claire.
Huh? Mom? What do you mean? What do you mean, what do I mean? Can't you see the face of your son? It's so obvious what you did. And to think you used to be my favorite. You evil, good-for-nothing. Mom, I don't think I quite understand. What are you...
But Mom didn't give her a chance to complete the sentence as she jumped on her and started beating her badly. Luckily, my dad was able to separate them quickly since he was stronger than both of them combined.
What is this madness again?
Your good-for-nothing, wayward daughter was dating my ex-boyfriend while I was dating him. Ask her.
The boyfriend you were cheating on me with?
Yes.
My mom said, turning bright red.
Is this true, Claire?
This was when Claire finally realized what Mom had been rambling about.
Oh my god. You've made me realize who my baby's father is. And by the way, I never dated your married boyfriend. Just his son.
He was married?
My dad was even more hurt and disappointed in my mother at this point. Mom calmed down after Claire's explanation. Despite the fact that I warned them not to allow my mother to stay after her first display of constant madness, Claire and my dad still allowed her to stay for a few weeks, saying,
She's still our mother, Clara. And nothing can change that. Let her just stay for some time.
One day during dinner, my mom suddenly broke down and started begging us to take her back. She said her boyfriend refused to leave his wife for her and finally abandoned her after 3 whole years of her life. And since she'd been out of the workforce for more than 3 years, landing a new job was kind of difficult. This made her jobless, homeless, and starving. We actually considered accepting her back into our lives, but when we noticed that I had become her new favorite child and how she kept on making comments about Claire being a disgrace because she got pregnant out of wedlock and as a teenager, we realized that she was still a mad woman that would never change. Despite her pleas, we sent her away and warned her to never visit us again. We lived a better life once she was completely gone from our lives. Claire and I became the best of friends, and we showed Claire's son what true, unconditional love meant. I hope you enjoyed my story. If you did, click the like and subscribe button. It really helps our channel out. Turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next story we upload. Bye!
Mom, I want more cake.
Sure, honey.
More.
Okay. Here you go, honey.
I want a burger too.
Okay, dear.
Pizza, now.
Yes, honey.
I was a really fat kid, and I had no limits. I sort of looked like Patrick from SpongeBob SquarePants, and what made it worse was that was actually my real name. None of this bothered me much when I was little because there's not much peer pressure when you're that young. Of course, I got teased a bit at school, but that didn't matter to me. What mattered to me was that there was cake at home and ice cream. So who cared if Karen Jr. thought I was taking up too much space? But that began to change through middle school. Middle school kids are worse, and I began to feel self-conscious. I started looking at myself in the mirror and I felt very uncomfortable. Was that really me? I was bigger than a small dinosaur. I became sad and shy, because kids do experience these feelings sometimes, you know? My parents started to get worried about me, so my mom sat me down to have a talk one night.
What's wrong with you, my adorable, cuddly teddy bear darling boy?
I don't want to be cuddly or a bear. I'm a boy. I'm so fat, Mommy. The kids tease me and the girls don't like me.
Girls? Why are you thinking about girls at your age?
I'm 12, Mom. All my friends have crushes now, but none of my crushes will talk to me. It's because I'm fat, isn't it?
No, something is wrong with them.
Something is wrong with me, I whined.
Okay, fine, son. If you're so uncomfortable, we can do something to change that. You're going to have to change your diet, and you'll have to start exercising regularly.
No!
If you want to change, you have to work hard. That's the only way.
She shrugged and left the room. I sat there all alone looking at my belly rolls and feeling like a whale. I decided then and there that this type of life was coming to an end. I had my mom donate all our junk food to the less fortunate. Then we went to the supermarket and bought healthy stuff. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, that sort of stuff. It was really hard to adjust to the change at first because it's hard to happily munch on carrots when you're used to cookies being a food group. My mom bought me some gym equipment too because I was too shy to go to the gym. For months, I ate no junk food and I worked out twice a day. I became a total hottie, but I only realized the huge change at a family Thanksgiving dinner. My aunts and uncles and all their children flew over to spend the evening with us at our house. My grandparents were there too, and every time someone opened the door, their reaction was different.
Is this Patrick's friend? He's so cute.
Oh my gosh, Patrick, what happened to you?
Who are you, and what have you done with my grandson?
At dinner, I was the main topic. Everyone kept telling me how handsome I looked and how proud of me they were. It was one of the best feelings I had ever experienced, but it also made me dependent on constant reassurance from people about how good I looked. So anyway, years passed and it was finally time for high school. I was still gorgeous, by the way, but even more so. I had muscles, a six-pack, The whole shazam. I asked my parents if I could go to a high school outside of our town where less people knew me. I wanted a fresh start, away from anyone who knew what I looked like in the past. They agreed, and before I knew it, I was a high school celebrity. I became a total chick magnet in no time. It wasn't hard to make friends at all. I joined the football team to seem even cooler, and because I was so fit now, I made a really great player. When I played, all the cheerleaders would drool over me, even those who were in relationships. My football friends introduced me to some of the most popular girls at our school. The prettiest one was Jenny, but she already had a boyfriend. Her best friend Sandra seemed like she was really into me though, so we started going out. She was my first girlfriend, and the girl who taught me all about dating. I tried my best to be a good boyfriend. We hung out after school and went to the movies almost every weekend. What I loved most about her was that she was constantly telling me how good I looked. Then, one night while we were strolling home after the movie, she mentioned something which made my heart jump.
Hey, do you know that Jenny broke up with her boyfriend Chad? He was cheating on her. So awful.
What? That's good.
What's good about that?
Oh, nothing. When I got home, I decided to send a message to Jenny right away. I just pretended to be the caring, concerned friend. But what I really wanted was to find out if she'd consider going out with me. What? Don't judge me. She's the one I originally wanted anyway. Would you believe that she agreed to meet me after school the next day, even though she knew I was dating her friend? I suppose that's the advantage of being hot. You can get any girl you want. I told Sandra that I had an upset stomach and I couldn't hang out with her that day because I was going to bed. Then I met Jenny and took her to my favorite restaurant downtown. It was nothing fancy, just burgers and fries. But I regretted eating that later and I worked out for an extra hour. I was totally lost in Jenny's eyes, and I couldn't believe how beautiful she was. In no time, she agreed to be my girlfriend. I told her that I broke up with Sandra, but she shouldn't say anything to her because it would hurt her feelings. Sandra didn't suspect a thing. So I had 2 girlfriends, and they were best friends. Then my life took a more complicated turn that summer. My parents had been planning to tour around Europe for a while, and it looked like their plans were finally coming together. On my last day of school, my mom and dad handed me an itinerary with so much excitement in their eyes. You mean we're going to be gone for 2 whole months?
Yes, dear.
Awesome! I said goodbye to Sandra and Jenny the same night. I met Sandra a little earlier, then told her I had to run home to pack. But I really went to meet Jenny after, because I wanted to spend more time with her. Anyway, before I knew it, I was in France. I went to many different tourist attractions with my parents, but after a while I started to feel bored. I mean, if you're a teenager and you're like me, you probably don't enjoy spending every second with your parents. So after we were settled a bit, I started going out by myself. I enjoyed walking around just looking at everything. But one day I got a bit tired, so I decided to stop at a cozy little cafe. I ordered a cup of coffee and a cool-looking pastry. And as I was looking around for a seat, I saw the most beautiful girl I had ever seen in my life. I decided to take a chance and ask her if I could sit with her. Hey, is this seat taken?
No.
Oh, you speak English. That's great.
Yes, I do.
She had a cute little accent which I couldn't get over. She told me her name was Celine and that she lived nearby. I asked her if she'd go out with me on a date the next day and she agreed. She planned the date because it was her country. We went to a cute little garden, then I had a romantic little lunch. I enjoyed every moment, and I even kissed her goodbye when it was time for me to go back to my hotel. The next day, we went to the Louvre because she decided that I absolutely had to see it. While we were looking at some interesting art pieces, I held her hand and asked her if she'd be my girlfriend. She agreed, and we kissed again. What? I was in the city of love, so do you really think that Sandra and Jenny were on my mind? The next day she was busy, and I decided to go back to the Louvre by myself because there was something I wanted to check out. I was so caught up with Celine the day before that I felt like I missed something. What? I'm a jerk, but yeah, I do like art. Anyway, while I was staring into space, I felt a light tap on my shoulder. I turned around, and my jaw dropped. If I thought Jenny and Celine were beautiful, this girl was on a whole other level. Hi, I trembled.
You've been staring at this for a long time? What are you thinking?
I looked into her eyes, and I was so mesmerized that I couldn't speak.
Come with me. I'll take you to another museum. It's even cooler than this one.
I decided that she was too pretty to be a serial killer, so I followed her. She told me her name was Chloe and that she was from the south of France, but her parents sent her to a boarding school in England so she could learn English. She was on vacation for the summer just like me. I took her back to the hotel and introduced her to my parents. Then we all went for a fancy dinner together. I had so much fun with her that we exchanged numbers, and by the end of the week, yep, you guessed it, she was my girlfriend too. So now I had 4 girlfriends. I said goodbye to Celine and Chloe the night before my parents and I left for Spain. At different times, of course. They both cried, and I thought it was so cute. Anyway, in Spain, we stayed at my parents' friend's house near the sea, and they had a really hot daughter named Gabriella. To cut a long story short, she eventually became my girlfriend too. I just loved that thrill I got every time a new girl desired me. So the same thing happened in Portugal. Her name was Laura. And Germany. Her name was Mila. So I was up to 7 now. When I got back home, I sort of felt relieved. I didn't even tell Sandra and Jenny I was back. I just switched off my phone for 2 days so I could get a break. But when I turned it back on, it was time for business. I decided to meet Jenny first because I missed her the most. I told Sandra I was recovering from food poisoning caused by awful German sausages and went to Jenny's house. But when Jenny opened the door, my jaw dropped. Standing next to her was a girl who was 10 times prettier than she was.
This is my cousin, Carlene.
Hi, Carlene. I'm Patrick.
Patrick? Like the starfish? What a funny name.
I was in love. Later that night, I got a message from her saying that she got my number from Jenny's phone. She asked me if I'd meet her for lunch the next day, and I agreed. We met at a food court in the mall, and we had the most adorable conversation ever. Then I saw her wave to someone nearby.
Hey, my friend Desiree is coming to join us for a while. You don't mind, do you?
No. But when Desiree sat next to me, my eyes nearly fell out of my head. She was gorgeous. And I seriously couldn't concentrate because I was sitting with 2 beautiful women, and I was just confused. It seemed like Desiree was really into me too. And when Carlene got up to go to the bathroom, she asked me for my number. I texted them both every night for a while, and I'd meet them sometimes for romantic strolls wherever. Eventually, they both became my girlfriends. So yep, we were up to 9. I guess I became too confident because I became less careful when I snuck around. It was also hard to talk to all 9 of my girlfriends consistently. One night, while Desiree was sitting in my living room with a huge bowl of popcorn, and we were just about to make out, the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there was my German girlfriend. She jumped into my arms and started kissing me. Then Desiree came over and dumped the entire bowl of popcorn on her head. At that moment, Jenny and Carlene came over, and when they realized what was going on, they all started fighting with each other. I managed to separate the fight and get them to stop. But they were so upset with me that they all left and started posting horrible things about me on social media. Now, all my other girlfriends knew that I had been cheating on them, and people started making all kinds of funny memes about me. It was awful. The next day, I woke up with a headache and looked outside of my bedroom window. It seemed like a new family was moving in next door. I went downstairs to ask them if they needed help, and then I saw her holding a box with a twinkle in her eyes.
Hi, my name's Annie.
My heart melted, and very soon, I had my 10th girlfriend. 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 Girlfriend.